that one at bat, bases loaded. I wanted to come through so bad for the team. So I just totally forgot to use my breath and do my pre-pitch routine. I was up there so tense. I wanted to hit a grand slam so bad. Because of that, I tried to do too much. I was overthinking. I let the umpire's call get to me. I swung at 2 pitches in the dirt and ended up striking out.
Welcome back to the Baseball Playground. This is your host, Jacob Odell.
Coach Matt McGowan.
And today we have an awesome guest, Brandon Guyer, who is the head mental strength coach for the Angels, Virginia, and University of Houston. So thank you so much for being on the show, Brandon, and give the fans a little bit of a introduction about yourself, brother.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, fellas. So I'm trying to think of introduction, trying not to make it too long. But yeah, so I grew up and played ball in Northern Virginia, and I went to Herndon High School. And we might get into this in the show, but what has really got me to where we are today, us talking, is because of my first 3 years at Herndon High School when I just, for lack of better words, sucked. I think as a junior, I hit 270, and it was heading into senior year. A coach recommended some resources for the mental side of the game because I feel like I had the physical side, but the mental side I struggle with. So just went deep, literally got a key to unlock myself that senior year. Then went to the University of Virginia, played there for a little bit. And we can get into more details about the different stops, but so it was really that summer of junior year of high school, which got me to where we are today. Then I played with the Rays and the Cleveland Indians, so 7 years in the big leagues. And in 2020, retired and became a mental strength coach. Always knew what I wanted to do post-career because I was obsessed with the mental side of the game once I saw how it changed the trajectory of my life and so many other players' lives. That's how we got to where we are today.
Sounds awesome. I mean, I feel like the mental part of the game in every sport and every aspect, even in life, is not maybe talked about as much as much as it should have or should be. Talk to us about, some of the challenges that you see, in young players, just mentally and how someone that's listening to this who maybe is struggling or has a little anxiety, some stuff that they can do to better be prepared.
Yeah, great question, because it's a very common thing, really for all, whether it's big leaguers, college, high school, youth, little leaguers, it's common. And these are the 4 things that really, really hold back players the most. Fear, specifically the fear of failure and the fear of making a mistake, fear of not being perfect, inability to handle adversity, which in the game of baseball, there's so many ups and downs. It's those who are great at handling that and responding powerfully to it that end up having way more success. And I like to think big leaguers are big leaguers. They're talented, but they're the best at failing. They're the best at handling adversity. Number 3, lack of routines, specifically pregame, in-game, and post-game routines, and also AM and PM routines, like the bookends of our day. Having these routines to really stack the odds in their favor and help them quickly bounce back, not if, but when that adversity comes their way on, but not just on, off the field as well, because life is messy, life is unpredictable, stuff's going to come our way, obstacles, challenges. Do we have what it takes? I like to call it be anti-fragile. Are you able to absorb everything, respond to it, and use everything as fuel for your growth? Because that's a true superpower, if so. And then the last thing, up there with the most important, discipline. Can you out-discipline the competition? Can you do what you know is best for you, whether you feel like it or not? Because it's easy to do that stuff when things are going good. But do you have the discipline? Do you have the willpower to do it when things aren't going your way on and off the field? Because if you do, then you're going to show up more consistently at your best. And something I always like to say is never perfectly, but more and more consistently. Can you close the gap? And the gap is who you're capable of being as a person and player and who you're actually being. When this gap is wide, you're capable of this, but you're actually being this, regret, poor performance, anxiety, depression, mental health concerns, all of that stuff lies there because you're capable of this, but because of your lifestyle, because of your discipline, your behaviors, and your habits, you're actually being this. When they develop the mindset and the discipline to close that gap and literally express that best version of themselves, never perfectly, but more and more consistently, then all the results that they're looking for on and off the field come their way as a byproduct. It doesn't mean it's easy. When we're on this journey to be great, it's not supposed to be easy. So that's the first thing for players to, everyone listening, The first step for all of this is acceptance. Accept that it's not supposed to be easy. Accept, and this is something a mentor taught me when I was struggling that changed my life. Accept that you will never be exonerated from pain, uncertainty, and hard work. Once we can accept that and not resist that stuff, everything changes. And then we have this attitude of gratitude that changes our perspective. Then we look at obstacles as true opportunities to get better. Then we have to cultivate a win or learn mindset that literally becomes win or win because we learn and we use it as fuel. I know I'm saying a lot right now, but this is all stuff that is trainable, that is teachable, and it all comes down to, do these players truly want to be great? And I'm sure a ton of them listening, if they're listening, they do. Once they realize that they can train their mind just like their body, and then once they do, they can tap into that 30 to 40 to 50% that is just lying dormant inside of them, the potential is lying dormant, everything changes. You go from this fixed mindset to a growth mindset, and knowing you can train it and tap and just chip away at those four things: fear, inability to handle adversity, lack of routines, and lack of self-discipline. You chip away at what's in the way. As I always like to say this when I travel around and speak around the country. When Michelangelo was asked years and years and years ago, the famous sculptor, Michelangelo, how do you create your masterpieces? He replied, all I do is chip away to get to the masterpiece inside. So, players out there, each and every one of you have that masterpiece inside of you. Are you going to have the grit? Are you going to have the work ethic and the discipline to chip away at what's in the way? Because then if you do that, I'm telling you, you have no regret at the end of your career, and then you're given this key once again that unlocks that 30 to 40 to 50% that is just sitting inside of you. And I'm going to go back to my senior year of high school. My first 3 years when I struggled, that was all inside of me. Okay, but then I trained the mental side so I could unlock the physical side. And really, I know this is a long answer. I'm going to end with this. We have a wall that represents our physical potential. Okay, now what determines how close you get to that is your mental skills and your mental fitness, if you will. Because this is the simplest way to really show and explain how those with less physical skills pass by those who have more. So someone who has out of this world physical skills, say their physical wall is right here, crazy potential, they could be absolutely great. Well, if they only have the mindset, they can't handle fear, they're perfectionists, they have a fixed mindset, can't handle failure or adversity, don't have routines, they're only going to get so close to that wall that represents their physical potential. But let's say the person with less physical talent, their wall is right here. But they develop that sixth and most important tool. They get that key. Well, they get as close as they possibly can to that potential. And what happens? Boom, they pass by that person who had more physical skills but never trained that side of the game. So I know it's a long-winded answer, but that's just kind of how I feel about all of it.
Yeah, you got a lot of information right there to unpack. I'm gonna have a fun time editing all of that into short form content. That's gonna be awesome for me. But I also want to touch on all the things that you say are tremendous. And for a lot of people, they can listen and they can just hear it without doing the implementation. So what are some of the ways that they can actually start implementing this step one for maybe a youth player who, or a high school player who's starting to that mental journey? What is step one for them to start unlocking it in theory from what you were talking about into real steps?
Love that, because it's 3 steps. Learn it, practice it, master it. Obviously, you don't know what you don't know, so you got to learn it. Then you apply it, and this goes for anything in life. You apply it, what you learned, you practice it, you get reps, then you master it, and it becomes autopilot. You just do what you do without thinking about it. Obviously, you got to put the reps in to get there. So how do you start doing it? I think players can get 80% of the way there or close to that if they figure out, and this is, I talked about it earlier, closing that gap. Finding out who they are at their best, literally what's their identity, and what it is they do that helps them show up at their best. So thinking about it, getting the virtue of curiosity, shine the flashlight. What is it that I do when I have my great days? What is it that I do that leads to it? Are you grateful? Because I think an attitude of gratitude and being grateful is up there with the most important skill. Because when we have that attitude of gratitude, we take time to write down or think about things we are grateful for, people, experiences that we're grateful for. We show up with a different energy when we play the game of baseball. Okay? And when we have a different energy, our perspective, our outlook on everything changes. And then the inevitable failures, obstacles, challenges that are going to come our way, they don't hit nearly as hard. They don't affect us as much because we appreciate everything. So, number one tool, be grateful, have an attitude of gratitude. Number two, really train, and this is up there tied with attitude of gratitude, control the controllables. This is simple in theory. It's harder in practice. If you get great clarity of what's 100% in your control, and I have an acronym, REAP, and I picked this acronym because you reap the benefits. You become not good. You become great at controlling what's in your control. Then, way less pressure, way less stress, way more fun, and you playing the game of baseball and living your life free and loose. Okay, so there's so much out of our control in life. Like I've gotten way into ancient philosophy, Stoicism. Their whole philosophy, what is it? There's so much we don't control, but what do we do control? How we respond to the things that are out of our control. So micro moments throughout the day, players, we can train this. When things don't go your way on and off the field, real quick, is that in my control? If not, okay, why waste any energy and focus on it? So REAP, your responses, your effort, your energy, your emotions. A, your attitude, your actions, your appearance, meaning your body language. P, your perspective, your positive self-talk, your present moment focus, your practice. That's all in our control. So really just being relentlessly focused on that and letting go of everything else, letting go of umpires' calls. When I travel and I ask, hey, what's out of our control? Literally the first thing every time is umpires. Yeah, but we tend to let them get to us, right? The thoughts and opinions and decisions of other people out of our control, weather, field conditions. There's so many things that these players get wrapped up in. And dude, I used to be guilty, and I'm not perfect, still am at times. But over time, I developed, and I try to help athletes develop the skill of controlling the controllables. And once they do that, so much changes. Okay, so 3 practical steps. Really come up with what it is you do that helps you show up at your best. Create a checklist for success. Boom, boom, boom. This is what helps me show up at my best. Cultivate an attitude of gratitude. It changes everything. And then just really get great at controlling the controllables. Three practical steps right there that will start you on this process and on this journey of you dominating the mental side of the game.
It's fantastic. Fantastic stuff. You're absolutely right. Understanding what you can control, what you cannot control. My next question has to be for the parents that listen. When they see their son struggling or their daughter struggling, what is something they can do to help them be mentally prepared or mentally focused for a game? Or, how can they give them that support? Where some parents, just don't know how to do that.
Yeah. Very good question. I mean, I have a 8, 7, and 4-year-old, so this is something very much into and is so important. I think number one, cultivating in them a win or learn mindset. Win or learn mindset. Once again, if these players can go into competition truly knowing to their core, it's win or learn, the pressure melts away. And a lot of times, and I know parents want the best for their kid. We all do. But a lot of times we add pressure to them by focusing on results and not focusing on the controllables. So I would say those controllables, the REAP, REAP, that should be all that matters. If they're doing that, then if they can execute that, the results they want will come as a byproduct. But too often, parents and players focus on what's out of their control, such as the end results, which we don't control. We control everything that leads to them. So if we can focus on the controllables and really having a win or learn mindset, win, hey, your son or daughter wins, Boom, be proud. That's awesome. They put the work in, they won. Hey, if they didn't win, they didn't have success in a game, it's learn. And I always say the car ride home is so important. So a process that I have players and parents go through, it's called better adjustments. Okay, talking to them. What are a couple things, and always starting with that, what are a couple things, son, I'm going to use my son's name, but you can, whatever your son's name is, Camden, what are a couple things you feel like you did well? You went 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts, but what would you say you did really well? This is for the car ride home, or really anytime. I focused on what I could control. I didn't get a hit. I was a good teammate, though. I made that good diving play in the outfield. And one at-bat that I didn't strike out, it was like a 9-pitch at-bat, so it was a good quality at-bat. Beautiful. If the player or parent can't find something that they did well, there's a bigger issue at hand. That means they're not controlling what they can control. Okay, so we got well. Okay, Camden, what could you have done better? That one at bat, bases loaded. I wanted to come through so bad for the team. So I just totally forgot to use my breath and do my pre-pitch routine. I was up there so tense. I wanted to hit a grand slam so bad. Because of that, I tried to do too much. I was overthinking. I let the umpire's call get to me. I swung at 2 pitches in the dirt and ended up striking out. Okay, Camden, if you're in that same situation next game, what's an adjustment you're going to make? Remember, so it's called better adjustments. What's your adjustment? You know what? If I'm in the bases loaded or any at-bat, any big at-bat, any at-bat, I'm going to do that slow, deep breath while looking at my focal point. I'm going to get in, and I'm going to end with my powerful thought that we talked about. Line drive right back at the pitcher's head. That's my final approach. I'm going to end with that, and I'm going to do that every pitch, and I'm just going to keep it simple. Call it 2 or 3 steps to keep it simple. It's an antidote to overthinking. So right there, parents, cultivate a win or learn mindset. Have them just be so focused, and you be focused on them controlling what they can control. I think right there, that will, without a doubt, make that pressure go away. And when these kids don't feel pressure and they play the game of baseball free and loose, watch out. Things get exciting, and the results they want come as a byproduct.
Absolutely. I mean, we stress focal point. We stress deep breaths. I love the better adjustments. The win or learn mindset. I think that is so key, especially at the high school level, especially for coaches. I coach baseball. I think that's something that I circled and wrote down, like that's something that I have to bring to the program, because you're absolutely right. Like it is something where we have to learn from our experiences in order to grow. You deal with college players, you deal with professional baseball players. What is a common theme amongst those players where, there's an issue? Is it fear? And if it is fear, how do we break that, break that mindset?
Great question. So there's 2 things. Well, those 4 things I talked about, but the 2 things that stand out, fear, the fear of failure mostly, and then perfectionism. And everyone who puts the work in and wants to be great can fall in that trap at times. So let's start with fear. With fear, it's not about not having fear. So courage, when you have courage, it doesn't mean you don't have fear. It means you have fear, but you act in the presence of it. So helping them build up that courage muscle so they're more courageous. And really, when you have a win or learn mindset, you don't fear failure, because it's part of the process. It's not supposed to be easy, the game of baseball and life, and you accept that. So then slowly but surely that goes away. But I like to talk about anti-fragility. When these players can be anti-fragile, and you can be fragile and break easily, you can be resilient and bounce back quicker than most, or you can be anti-fragile. You don't just bounce back quicker than most. You bounce back stronger than ever before, because everything is fuel for your growth. And deep down, the more you get kicked around on and off the field, the stronger you get. Because you're the type of person that does what that best version of you does, those behaviors and habits, whether you feel like it or not. You have your routines and you commit to them, whether you had a bad game or a great game. You prioritize your sleep and your nutrition, and you utilize your breath, and you train your mind just like you train your body. Okay, you control the controllables, and then the name of the game, you play the ultimate game in life, which is closing the gap between who you're capable of being and who you're actually being. When they do that, that fear slowly but surely doesn't hit them as much, but we have to know the fear is always going to be there. It's about developing these skills and tools to act in the presence of it. And a win-or-learn mindset and everything I talked about is huge. Now, with the perfectionism, I remember a great book, The Pursuit of Perfect by Tal Ben-Shahar. And he said there's two types. There's a healthy and unhealthy perfectionist. And when I heard this, gosh, it changed so much. You can be a perfectionist and have very high standards, but the perfectionist, they think they're going to hit them all the time. So when they don't, they bring a hammer and they shame themselves. They bash themselves and their self-image goes way down. Or he said, you can be the opposite. You can be an optimalist. An optimalist has the same very high standards as a perfectionist, but they know deep down they're going to make mistakes. They're going to fall short. So what they do, when they do, they bring a flashlight and then a hammer. A flashlight on what's going well and what's not going well. Curiosity, win or learn. And then they bring a hammer, not to shame themselves. They bring a hammer to change their behaviors, to change their habits, and to take action on what they learned from when they fell short. Okay, so that's a huge trap for players of all ages. They work so hard, they want to be so good, so they're a perfectionist. But let's be the healthy version of that. Let's be an optimalist. Let's have the same very high standards. Let's still want to win. Let's still compete with all we've got. Everything we talk about with Major League Mindset that I talk about is to give them the skills and tools and mindset to help enhance their ability to compete with all they have. Never should it take away your ability to compete. We want to compete with the intention to win, knowing we're not going to win all the time. Okay, so then we bring the flashlight and the hammer. We do the post-game reflection, and boom. So much changes, and I'm going to say it again. You then play free and loose on a consistent basis. And as you all know, when you're playing or now you're coaching, when players are free and loose, they're more confident, they have more fun, and they play better. So that's really what it's all about.
You brought up some fantastic points, but you also brought up your Major League mindset. That's something that you run. Talk to our viewers and listeners about Major League Mindset and kind of where they can find some of your stuff or where they can get a lot of this great mindset stuff for their players or for themselves.
Yeah, so this Thursday, Class 5 starts by, so this is the 5th class. Each class is basically just an 8-week live online training with me. So BrandonGuyer.com or any of the social media sites. What it is basically every Thursday night, at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I come on live. There's 8 milestones that make up the Major League Mindset program. And every Thursday, I cover one of them for about an hour or so. And every single milestone, we have this workbook here. It's about 80 pages. I have a visual design expert that kind of brought alive the whole program. Infographics and visuals and worksheets come with every milestone, and it's put on a password protected page because a lot of players who take part can't join live because of whatever going on in life, practice or games or school. So then they always have access to the recording and all the infographics and worksheets on a password protected page. So years down the road, if they want to look at it and get a refresh, they have it. So it's 8 weeks. It starts on Thursday. This is Class 5. Have had about 1,000 players come through so far in the couple years since doing this. And so I do that. And then I also travel around the country and speak. I'm working with the Angels, University of Virginia, Houston, a couple other teams right now, and having fun, just taking really, I like to look at it like this. I went through the gauntlet. Any mental or physical obstacle any player can think of, I've been there. Fear, performance anxiety, stress, pressure, Tommy John surgery when I was 12, 7 surgeries. I was nicknamed La Piñata, all-time hit-by-pitch leader per plate appearance in Major League Baseball history. I've experienced it all. But what that gave me, that gauntlet gave me, is the experience, the wisdom, and really the platform to develop this system to then empower athletes with a mindset that's going to then help them. If they apply everything, it's a guarantee or they get their money back. Help them and enable them to show up as that best version of themselves more and more consistently on and off the field. So that's a snapshot of what the program is, and pumped for Class 5 to start this Thursday.
Yeah, it's awesome. I've checked out a lot of the Major League Mindset stuff, and just everything looks like it's coming together, and the testimonials that I see from you is just awesome, and people seeing the results from going from nothing to really dominating their game, which is awesome to see.
Thank you.
I know you're stressed for time, so I have two more questions, and then we'll ask you our final three outs. What is the best advice you would give a young high school baseball player?
It's a great question. The best advice. Man, I'm trying to think of something different rather than what I told you already. I would say an equation. Physical skills plus mental skills equals your true potential unlocked. You can train the mental side or the physical side of the game all you want, but if how you practice doesn't always show up in games, it's not the physical side that's holding you back. It's the mental side. So if you, and I like to say, do a little, a lot, not a lot, a little. So try to focus to do this. You don't have to do it hours every day. Maybe you hit up, I call it the mind gym for 1% of the day, which is 14 minutes and 24 seconds. Try to just get that 1% better with the mental side of the game every single day. And that we all have that time to do that. So them just really understanding that equation. Physical skills plus mental skills equals their true potential unlocked. And then really everything I talked about today. And the key thing of it all is we need to just shift our perspective on life and on baseball. And the number one way to do that is being grateful and having an attitude of gratitude. I can't emphasize that enough. That's why I'm bringing it up again. If these players can do this, and that's why it's one of the very first things on Thursday, this first session, I will dive deep on how to go about cultivating that attitude of gratitude, because then you show up with a different energy. And when that energy is more positive and you're more free and loose, man, you have way more fun. And these players will admit and when they have more fun and they're more confident, that's what it's all about. Every player wants more confidence, but too many players rely on results for confidence. So I'm trying to give them all the skills and tools to create it. And then when you add on results, then the confidence goes through the roof, because obviously results are going to make us more confident. It's just how it works. But we can't rely on those in this game, in any game, in the game of life especially. So I would say that, and accept it's not going to be easy. Once we accept that, then everything changes. It's not as painful, and we have more grit. So I'll stop there.
You talked about setting a routine in life and in baseball. What about for those kids that, maybe aren't taught a routine, taught an approach, or something like that? Is there a good book, or is there something that you would recommend for those players on how to learn how to create a routine, or how to, adjust the mindset?
Yeah, great question. So there's a lot of good books out there. I'm going to actually recommend a free app that I have no ties to, and it's the very first thing that players download when they take part in the program. The app's called Habit Share. So what it is, I mentioned the word earlier, checklist for success. So it becomes your checklist for success. The first 3 habits and behaviors I have players input in that app, and basically they can share them with me, and I can hold them accountable, and I can see if they're doing it throughout the 8 weeks. Make your bed, drink 8 to 10 ounces of water when you wake up, and AM gratitude practice. So you start the day off winning, and then we sprinkle in things throughout the day that becomes their checklist for success, or becomes their routines like you just talked about. So that's right there, how you train it and how you develop your routines. And really, there's no the way. These players, through trial and error, to get to that mastery stage, have to make it their own. Through trial and error, make it their own routine. Reading books and what I go over and what you guys coach them, they get this all information, then they got to make it their own. So I would just say Habit Share, free app, make it your checklist for success, or your protocol, or your process, whatever you want to call it. And then if you do that stuff, whether you feel like doing it or not, you're a different person and a different player.
100%. Yeah, I use Habit Share with my buddies all the time, and it's a great app. Just it's free too. Like you don't really.
I don't know how it's free, but
yeah, it's a great app. It's probably the best habit tracker I've ever used. So I highly recommend it. And I agree with you on that. So we got our last segment, which is called our last 3 outs for you. Bottom of the ninth, 2 outs. All right. We're down to our last couple strikes. What's your favorite food?
Ooh, ribeye. Grass-fed, 100% grass-fed ribeye.
Wow. Specific. Jeez.
Love it.
Favorite movie?
Gladiator.
There you go. Yes.
Maximus.
You talked about you talked about the old times, and I wanted to mention the book Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. That's what popped into my head when you were talking about the Stoicism. So that's a great book as well that people should read. And then finally, your favorite baseball player, dead or alive?
Growing up, I grew up in the DC area. I love Cal Ripken. So him and Ken Griffey Jr.
Awesome.
And can I say one thing though, real quick, before we wrap up? You brought up Marcus Aurelius. So one thing, basically the first thing I cover in the whole program, I say let's travel back thousands of years. Let's talk to and ask Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Aristotle, Epictetus. Let's ask them what the ultimate purpose of life is. And if you ask them, you travel back in time, hey Marcus, what's the ultimate purpose in life? What is he going to say? It's to become the best version of you, but to do so in service to something bigger than you, in service to your team, your family, your friends, your community, your school, the world at large. Okay. And then I said, let's travel back, modern, present-day philosophers and psychologists. Let's ask them, what's the ultimate purpose of life? What do they say? The same exact thing. To become the best version of you in service to something bigger than you. And so that's the first thing I get across to players. We have to know what the ultimate purpose and the ultimate game is that we're playing. And then when we learn how to play that game well, everything we're after comes as a byproduct. Maybe not the exact timing that you want to, but if you're consistent with it, it does. So you bringing up Marcus Aurelius, I really wanted to talk about that.
Brandon, thank you so much. I mean, this has been great information. I know you're on a time constraint. We appreciate you being here, and truly, I think you're going to get this. This podcast is going to have a ton of information for these younger players and parents. So thank you again.
Awesome. Well, thank you and for the impact you all are making and for letting me be a part of that. So thanks. What's up, everybody? This is Brandon Guyer. This has been an episode on the Baseball Playground. Please make sure you follow on Instagram and YouTube.